welcome to our panel. It's called Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. We're going to be talking about how to basically democratize the film industry. And this is a very vital and important topic for us in Ethiopia. And we have incredible esteemed guests. And some of them you've already probably have seen before. And some of us are new. All right, so can you hear me now? Is it better? So yeah, my name is Abel Talahun, Dr. Abel Talahun. I'm a filmmaker, artist. I've been teaching at American University a while back, and that's where I know Kylos from. And so I'll introduce our panelists next. Before I do that, some housekeeping, a little bit of a housekeeping. Let's please turn off our cell phones or put it on airplane mode. And other than that, we're going to be doing this for like 45 minutes. We're going to have questions and answers after the discussion, and I hope you enjoy it. All right, I'm going to introduce Midge Costin, which you've already seen her film this morning. Producer and director of the award-winning feature documentary, Making Waves, The Art of Cinematic Sound, which I really enjoyed very much. Mitch has received multiple awards and nominations, including American Cinema Editors, Motion Picture Sound Editors, and Cinema Eye, and won the Cinema Audio Society for Outstanding Achievement in Sound Mixing. It's incredible. So yeah, Mitch, round of applause, please.
Thank you.
Okay, so, and then I'm going to introduce Professor Kyle Brannan, my old colleague from American University. Professor of Film at American University in Washington, D.C. Kyle serves as the Associate Director of Film and Media and Art Program. He has been running SmartPhilm filmmaking and workshops for over 8 years at a variety of conferences and film festivals. He works as a projection designer for live events ranging from theater performances. All right, good. All right. So immersive experiences to DJ parties where he mixes live mashups. As V2 currently he is working on a music history based Washington D.C. Wide subscription storytelling experience titled Psychographic, I guess?
Geographies.
Geographies, all right, good. Anyways, this is Kyle Brannan.
Hey.
Kylos. All right.
Yeah.
All right, great. Then we have Luna Solomon. An aspiring filmmaker, a social media sensation, and a member of OutUp Accelerator program. Yeah? Give it up. Right, so let's kick this off. So we're going to be talking about how do we democratize like filmmaking, and you know, especially when it comes to like places like Ethiopia, emerging economies. How do we do it? You want to start with this?
Sure. Well, I think in keeping with the sort of themes of the day, I've been saying that the smartphone, in many ways at the moment in filmmaking, is the great equalizer. So democratizing things is obviously creating an equitable and equal playing field. So the fact that so many people are walking around with a fairly robust filmmaking device in their pocket immediately starts to create that equal landscape.
Yeah, I think it's the same thing that I was saying too. I agree about, because I think if there's a good story, people will watch it. And I think even people, I think about a while ago, before we had TikTok and Instagram and all of that, like I look at okay, Michael Bay, a filmmaker who I worked with before, I did Armageddon and The Rock, and he was in commercials. Like he didn't start out in film. And he was in commercials, and then because he was doing really good commercials, and I think that's what's going to happen with Instagram, but TikTok videos and things. I mean, things go viral and you get a reputation. And I mean, in some ways, unfortunately, people still, it's about, are you going to make money for someone? So if you know, do well in a certain venue, I think you have people following you. I think that's going to really help. But I have to say too, because I'm in the academy and I'm on a couple of committees, and it's really shocking to me that people don't get, you know, they really don't get it, that we have to change things. So one example, I probably shouldn't say, no one's going to put this on social media.
It's
are they?
awesome, yeah. Let's do it.
But it's just kind of appalling sometimes when people, you know, don't understand. Like, okay, so there's, what can I say? There's a new Academy Museum, and I'm on the Academy Museum Committee, which I'm really happy to be on. And each branch chooses 3 films a year to show. And so the sound branch, we chose Inception was one of them. And then we make suggestions, who should we have speak? And I said, well, let's have Laura Hirschberg be a possibility because it's historic. It's the first time a woman won an Academy Award for sound mixing. And you know, when the head of the committee went to ask, they didn't include her in it. And I had to say, you know, it's really hard when you know. It was really important to see yourself in to see yourself in films and to see somebody doing the work. And we tried to do that in Making Waves to show you there's a diversity of people working, you know. And if you don't see yourself, as it says, then it's hard. So, and when I wrote something from the heart to say, you know, I used to feel that way. It was hard. It wasn't always easy being in the film industry. They changed, you know, and they said, oh, okay, we understand. And I don't think they're being vicious or intentionally trying not to include people, but they just don't know what they don't know. So I hope I'm not in trouble for anything I said.
So from a student's perspective, I think we tend to use not having the proper gear or the proper equipment to make a short film. So now I think because we have that in our hands, it will be easier for us to, you know, push ourselves to make that. So I think this program helps a lot of people like me that make content on platforms like TikTok and Instagram would use this opportunity to create something that's incredible. Yeah.
Okay, good. I think I'm going to kind of try to see this question from a lot of different angles. And one of the things that I want to do is that we've kind of like mentioned a couple of things here. One is technology, and you guys have talked about that a little bit, and I think we can dig deeper a little bit later with that. The other thing is thinking about like, for example, economy, and I think we've kind of touched up on that. Let's talk about art. Let's talk about like the sort of like, you know, you've mentioned TikTok and some of these platforms. And let's talk about like sort of like, I think this would be a concern for the audience as well, but you know, the high art, low art kind of, you know, relationship. Like, how do we get these kind of like really short snippets to become something worth, you know, documenting and keeping for the future? How about we start from that?
Well, what I see on that topic, if I understand what you're asking, so I teach a class on experimental film, the history of experimental film and video installations, photography, like the experimental side of things. And up until recently, you still needed to have access to higher ed equipment or more expensive equipment if you wanted to make something artsy. Let's say you're not going to be Michael Bay. Let's say you want to do, I mean, I do some artsy stuff. I do performance pieces, I do installations. They're not the sort of things that are going to show to millions, right? And for years, we've had people doing work like that. And we can go all the way back to Stan Brakhage in the 60s. But traditionally, people working more in an art realm, they need like an art school to want to show their films, or an art house theater, or like a little coffee shop. And maybe you show it to like 5 people or whatever. But I think that if you want to make art now, the numbers, they're up to you. If you make an experimental piece and 2,000 people around the world get to see it, and it touches them. No one in that group is less important because they're in a smaller numbered group. They all connected with you. And if you make something that appeals to millions, that's great too. But when you ask me about art, I think about things that are personal stories, maybe unusual in the way they structure things, or they're playing with visuals for purely visual sake. And what I like right now is that between the smartphone and YouTube or TikTok or Instagram or whatever comes next, you can put up something that is artsy, but it doesn't need to make millions of dollars. You get to set your standard of success. And don't let anyone else tell you what that standard is. It's great if you can pay your rent. I'm not saying, live under a bridge to make your art. I certainly don't. But, if you make something that speaks to you and you're making it for art's reasons, it's wonderful now that you can find others who will listen and feel touched by it. And then maybe they're on the other side of the world. So I don't know if I got on a tangent.
No, yeah, it's great, but I'm also like including like high-end cinema within that realm of things. So how does like TikTok go to like something we're gonna be like giving a big award to, like that kind of, how do we go from there, from our smartphones to something, not with equipments per se, but just conceptually and in those kind of ways.
So like if someone, I think that we might see a trend at some point where there might be awards or recognition for things being made like on TikTok or Instagram or, again, whatever's next. Because you always know when an industry or a fad or a tendency wants to play with the big kids. It's when they figure out how to give themselves awards. Because that's all that is. The film industry gives itself its awards. The music industry gives itself its awards, right? So once TikTok users decide they want to recognize each other with awards, they'll legitimize themselves that way. And that's one way you see things take a step up.
That's what I was saying. Put the microphone on.
You want to take mine?
All right, so, let's see. I think it's on now. What I was going to say when you first asked the question is, all of you can take your shorts, like you have one in this program in What Up, and you can apply for Academy Award. Has also foreign films, but also shorts. This is what I tell my students: apply to film festivals. Because the minute that you win something, you're an award-winning filmmaker, and you can claim that title. And it's one thing leads to another. So you're all capable of doing that with your smartphone. I'm telling you, when I saw those 47 films, I was on SmartPhilm, I was totally blown away. Like the level of, and it doesn't, the people who are in the film, I said this earlier at the end of my film, but they're saying, don't worry about the equipment. It's the principles behind shooting. So the guy who shoots for Tarantino, Mark Ulano, who records his sound, they do these dog and pony shows around the time of the Academy Awards. Well, they're free. You can come and see the film. Anyone who's in the Academy, they want you to vote for them. And then they bring up the sound crew or the actors or something. And there's always somebody who will ask, like, what camera did you use or what microphone? And he refused to tell them. He said it's not the microphone, it's the technique he uses. So, like one thing in the industry, microphone-wise, is like, we'd rather use a boom mic. It sounds better, it sounds more like our ears, than using a lavalier or a body mic or a wireless. But if that's all you can use, that's fine too. So it's not so much the equipment, like you were saying, Luna, it's not that. It really is the story. And I think, it's the story. And so don't stop yourself from doing that. If you've got a really good story, and you all have a good story, that's what's more important. Get it out there. And then get it to film festivals, and become an award-making film. Even if it's a local or your school, guess what? you're an award-making filmmaker. The minute, like you just said that to me, it's like, what did I win? You know, I can't remember, but you know, it wasn't one of the big ones. And you become an award-making filmmaker. So that's what I would say is just really, and don't be afraid. Put it out there. You know, hopefully it doesn't cost you an arm and a leg or cost you very much to apply.
Or give each other awards. Like you said,
Exactly.
legitimize yourself. You know, get together and do. You know, give awesome awards. Why not, Luna? When it comes to you, I want to like change the question a little bit. I want to say like how was your experience working with the out program? You can tell us a little bit about that and what was your experience like, and maybe like tie it into your experience before that as a social media influencer, and then coming here and what was the environment like?
So I already had an answer prepared for the first question.
Oh, go ahead.
But I just wanted to say that art is subjective, so however you interpret it, it's your interpretation. Now, one thing every director I was talking to was telling me is to tell your story. The story is what drives the film, and every little story, even in your life, could turn into a short. And I also learned to tell my story to be understood by anyone around the world. It doesn't have to be like directed to Ethiopians. If I'm making a short that can be understood just by Ethiopians, then it's not a film that's worth watching. So that's one thing I learned. So coming back to the second question, the program was a great experience. Before I joined the program, I was not aware of how the little details, especially when I took my class with you, I did not understand how the sound can actually transform the type of film we make, and that's one thing that blew me away. Lighting even wasn't something that I usually notice. I do photography too, so yeah, I do understand what lighting is used for. But during the classes when I really understood the importance of it. And I got to also meet a lot of short filmmakers in this country. We don't have a platform that's set up for people like us, so it was interesting to meet people like me as well. As a small TikTok or Instagram content creator, I don't focus on the quality or the editing part of making a film or a video. So coming to the program, it kind of opened up my eyes to notice some things that I usually wouldn't have noticed. What else? Yeah, these are some of the things I learned.
That's great. All right, so are you guys up for a challenge? Gotta give you one. So, with the recent advent in technology, especially with artificial intelligence, AI, you see, these models that create music for you. You see these models that create images. They're at the very early stage right now. They're doing a really incredible thing that's shocking me anyways. But, and there's animations and things that are coming out of these systems. I want you guys to take this question and take it further. What do you see the future of filmmaking and storytelling? So we know what we have now. We've talked about it, I think, very well. But how do we see the next revolution? And what's our artist's role inside that, I guess, or filmmaker's role?
Yeah, sure. I'll just start the microphone. I really think they have not figured out yet in virtual reality, VR, how to tell a story. And I think when that gets cracked, I think that's going to be incredible. Years ago, almost 20 years ago now, I was asked by the U.S. military, they wanted to use virtual reality. They wanted to use VR for people who have PTSD. So they wanted to know about how do we create sound that sounds realistic and that affects them, so that it can kind of bring you through a bad experience, and then explosions or whatever, and then I've seen there's a lot of stuff being done at USC with VR, but I just, and so I think it's good for like a personal experience to experience something, but I just don't understand how you can tell a story yet.
Especially losing that, like
Right?
communal experience. I
Yeah.
think that
So I think when that gets cracked, I think that's going to be huge. I really do. I'm not sure beyond that. It's really hard to say. That's not my thing. I was just talking, as I was, and I think that's why when people ask me like, what's the future of sound? I think it's going to be just more and more immersive, and I really think it's going to be more like personal, earbuds and headphones, and trying to make that more immersive and more like you're in a VR world. And I think that's going to be a trip once we figure out how to do that. Yeah.
okay, let's see.
Well, I'm basically going to echo a lot of what Mitch just said. At AU, we just built a volumetric 360 studio for creating holograms and immersive experiences and experiments with VR. And at the moment, if maybe someone back home is going to say I leave something out, but I believe that we've been concentrating on sort of little steps and like filming with musicians and creating an environment where it's immersive, where the musician is being a hologram and in an environment that's like VR. But I see VR stepping into gaming, and actually the volumetric studio is based in our gaming program, which is attached to our filming program. But I see gaming being a part of it, which is immersive, right? So it's about taking the user as an audience member and putting them in the story. So I agree with you that they haven't quite cracked it yet, but where I see we'll say the closest is like in my PS, I have a PlayStation VR setup, right? So I can play as Iron Man in a story, right? And I can get to the end of that story. Now, that's not quite the same as watching a film, but it's not like watching a film. So I think somewhere these things are going to get closer and closer together. We don't quite know exactly what that'll be yet.
I agree. I think it's an immersive experience where you could show or have someone experience something you want them to. In terms of storytelling, though, I'm not sure how. Maybe I think if we wanted someone across another continent to experience something that's in another continent, would be a great way for them to actually be in that environment to see that experience. Yeah, it would be something that I would definitely want to experience in this country too.
Actually, I think that's a really good point, because what you just said about if you were able to create a VR experience, an immersive, whether story or just experience, telling the story and the what's going on here, but someone in California can experience it. It actually harkens back to the very early days with the Lumiere brothers making their cameras and sending them out and coming back with ethnographic films for people in Paris and London to watch what it looks like in a country or part of the world that they will never get to. And that's in the late 1800s. And that's over 100 years ago, but the concept isn't different. I actually really like what you just said, because it reminds me of that. And I think that that's beautiful, because YouTube mirrors that too. And it hasn't changed in over 100 years at that sort of level.
Yeah, and I just want to say that Luna, you said earlier about, telling your own story. And what I found even when I was at film school, and I thought, oh, no one will understand. If I write about my great aunt, I mean, no one will understand that. It's very quirky and all this stuff. And I wrote these very gray, very boring stories. But what I have found, because we have students from all over the world, and what I have found is the more specific you can be about your story, the more universal it is, because we can all relate. I think as human beings, we have more in common, but it looks a little bit different. But when you tell your truth, like your real truth, we're going to get it, because it's going to be about love or sadness or death, or it's going to be a human experience. And then what's cool about it is it will be your specific thing. And then thinking about what Kyle was just saying too, it's like, when Luna started was, this whole idea that we can experience each other's, and it brings us all together, but you can't let go of your own personal thing. And I would say really just go for the super personal. Like, it's been so fascinating to be here, just like to see like what a beautiful culture and country, and it's just such a great opportunity, and you can bring that to the world. You guys as filmmakers, and bring that, and that would be fantastic. That's interesting.
All right. Final question. All right. So I had another plan which didn't work out. So my final question is about the fact that these things are being democratized, and there's a lot of people that have this access to these tools, and they're getting easier and easier by the minute, and sort of like the difficulty of making something is much less now. And I think your professionalism also, you don't have to go to school for this to understand how to work with this equipment and stuff. So there's going to be a big influx of like filmmaking and storytelling and all those things. And this is a question that was being asked, like, say, in 2005 or something like that, when the digital revolution was starting to happen. People were kind of concerned, is this going to cheapen what is going to be made? Because we're going to have a lot of good things, and we're also going to have a lot of bad things. So what's our relationship going to be to the media film, like, or to the film industry?
Well, this reminds me of two things, and I'm gonna, I think, sound a little bit like a cynic in my response to it, is that there's always more bad things than good things. We only remember the good ones. If you go back and look through lists of films released in any year between now and the start of filmmaking, there was more films than anyone remembers, and most of them were not good. So I don't think anything changes. In any realm where you have dozens to hundreds to thousands of things being made, the best hopefully rise to the top and are remembered and celebrated and viewed. But honestly, there's always going to be more that's not that good. And there's always something on the rise that scares the establishment. We heard it in your film.
Yeah.
That television was killing the film, right?
Yeah.
But before that, after that, VHS was killing film. And then after that, streaming or Netflix was going to kill film. And now YouTube and TikTok is going to kill film. It's not. It just scares the people who are making money off the way it is right now. So scare them. Get them away.
That's good.
Oh, I know what I was going to say is, you were saying about not needing film school, and one of the things I think that's really true, that you can, but little things like incubators are really great, like what, and also film school is great. I think the most important part, and I teach, at USC, but I think that the most important thing that my students, and went to graduate school and in film, and the most important thing was the networking, and it's that you meet each other, and you see how each other's work, and you meet people that you want to work with and who understand you and want to do the same thing, and so you meet like the people that you're going to end up working with. And I think that's also a way to do it, is just film groups, and just actually get out there and start making films, and then go to these film festivals that we were talking about, become award-winning filmmakers. But and I have on my phone, like, anytime anyone says to me, what's streaming and what they like, and I just have a to-watch list, I have a to-read list, so things do rise to the top, and a lot of people, want to watch certain things, so that I don't like horror films or horror things, and some people like sci-fi and all that, but you'll find what you like, but I think the good stuff does rise to the top, or the interesting, or whatever catches people. I don't think that, I agree that it's not any worse, or there's a lot of content, which is a positive thing. There's a lot more outlets that are a lot more democratized than it was when it was film, so that it's a really good thing.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it's part of the process. We just have to adapt to what's gonna come out next, and I think it's a great way of, it's an outlet for a lot of art and types of content that we can use to actually express ourselves and what we want to tell as a story. So I say it's part of the process. I think it's a great thing.
Awesome. So I think we've kind of covered everything. If we haven't covered certain things, we can definitely open it up to the audience. You can ask us questions, and we can answer to the best of our abilities. Who wants to go first? it's a big topic. So, yeah.
Thank you. So there was a question about the future of filmmaking, and all three of you spoke about VR. I want to ask you about artificial intelligence, and how you see artificial intelligence augmenting. What's the threat and what's the opportunity of artificial intelligence when it comes to storytelling in film? What do you think it adds to story in film, and what do you think it potentially detracts from story in film?
I would say, I mean, the thing that first comes to mind is like, oh, artificial intelligence is going to be so, there's not going to be any heart to it, no soul and all that. But I really think that, it's all about how much data gets collected. And, I thought about you because we had a conversation about what you do in your company, and that you can actually pull things from all over the world and kind of put things together from different filmmakers. And it would be a program that would actually do this. And, at first when you spoke to me, I thought the same thing. Oh, this sounds like something automatic, but and would there be heart and soul in it? But of course there will be, because I think as long as you get enough data, how do we edit? Why do we edit? On Making Waves, for example, sure, there was like a history, and editing is going to be so important in that. But like we did the history, and that's an easy way, just throughout history. But we had to, and I think it surprises people when they see the film. But it's really that you want who are the characters? And AI is going to be able to learn this. Who are the characters? You want them to be interesting. Why? Personal stories. You want there to be a struggle, and then you want them to, get to solve that. So when you think about, even Francis Ford Coppola and George Lucas and Walter Murch getting out of Hollywood, they wanted to do things differently, and then they become successful. But first they fail, And so there are personal stories. And I remember when Ben Burt, gave us his movies that he made in school, and they're so goofy, where the dinosaur eats them and everything. And I thought, man, this is gold, because you want that kind of stuff. And then he also gave gold when he says at the end, here he is, such a successful guy, but he had a nervous breakdown. So it's like AI is going to learn that, but it's like it really, it's like my first thought is, oh, it's going to be so automatic and it's not going to be good, but. Yeah, I think, AI will learn all this stuff. What are we looking for? And I was talking to Tadios for lunch, and during lunch, and saying, there's a whole story structure. And I remember when I was in film school, I would think, oh, that 3-act story structure, is that really, is that real? Or, that thing about there's only 7 stories in the whole world, or, but the truth is, it's something about the human struggle. I don't know if you agree, Kyle, or if you agree, Lunan, but, is it but I think we can learn that. And I think it comes back from ancient people, how we tell a story, and it's like there is something about the human struggle. Who's the character? What do they want? And then struggle, fail, and then eventually they get it. That can look so many different ways, but there is something about that format. Or does it take away from somebody's culture? I don't know. I'm not sure, but I think it's easier than we think. Is that AI is going to learn that, and
So I actually have a thought on AI that we're already working with it in a certain perspective to make things, because I use the Adobe products. So I use Photoshop, I use After Effects, I use Premiere almost daily, if not weekly. Previous to those products, I might need a human to do color correction for me, where make this red redder or whatever. But now Adobe knows how to do that. It has the intelligence to help me color correct when I tell it what to do. So in my mind, I'm kind of already collaborating with AI, a type of AI. So I look forward to collaborating with our robot filmmakers of the future to see what we can make together. And also, then I can be friends with them, so when the Terminator happens, I'm on good standing.
I agree. In terms of technical stuff like using Photoshop and other video editing apps, I think we're already using AI to some extent. But as we mentioned earlier, I think it's difficult to incorporate emotion when it comes to working with AI. So that aspect, I'm not sure how I would be open to that. But yeah, I think it's an interesting thing to see in the future, hopefully.
I'm gonna borrow his mic. So I think the thing that makes people nervous about this is that are we gonna be relevant? Are we gonna have jobs? And that's what it is. And yeah, I think you've kind of touched up on that. So that's good. Any other person? That's a question? Yeah. Can we get her a mic?
My name is Kokit. I wanted to ask this question to the ladies. What is it, how is the industry for girls, and do you get any kind of discrimination in the editing or film or content creating industry?
Yeah. Yes. Let's see. Yes, it's changed a lot and it's changing a lot, but it's kind of what I was saying before. I remember being really uncomfortable being in a mixed stage. So I figured out in film school that I didn't like being on the set very much. It's too chaotic and stuff for me. So I became an editor, picture editor, and then I switched to, or assistant and stuff, and then I decided to become a sound editor. And so I could be in my room and just do my work. Now, I was talking about that networking thing, and I worked with a lot of people, a lot of guys mostly, because I was working on big action adventure movies and doing effects, and some dialogue. But so there were a lot of guys who were doing effects, and but that's when I saw that. A lot of them were my friends. Some of them were my friends from school, and that's how I got hired, because they knew that I worked hard. It's like there are some the most important things I tell my students. These are the most important things I'm going to tell you, that I'm going to teach you. Show up on time. Do what you say you're going to do. Make your deadlines. Be a good collaborator. Someone that, like, when you finish your work, that you ask somebody else what they need. Because there's a lot of brilliant people. There's a lot of brilliant people, a lot of smart people, a lot of creative people. But it's like, who do you want to work with, like 18-hour, 20-hour days, So, and so they knew me from school, and so they hired me, and or suggested that I get hired. But then I'd go on the mixed stage, and there'd be these older kind of guys, and the way that and someone was always going through a divorce or something, and the way that they talk about women was so awful, that it was very unfriendly, and I really didn't. I felt uncomfortable. And once a supervising sound editor, Cece Hall, who's the one who does Top Gun, and she just said to them one day, you guys, enough of this. Like, and then she said, I won't say the words, said all these bad words that they were saying, and they were shocked. They were shocked. They were like, and they just didn't realize that they were creating an uncomfortable environment. I have to say, at USC, for example, at the university level, and also at Hollywood, there's a change, and people know, and it's different. And even if they don't get it necessarily all the time, there's a real effort to make it a change. And I still will look down like Variety, if you get it online, and it will still be pictures, guys, but I see a real effort to change, so that feels really hopeful. Feels hopeful.
Me personally, I haven't been exposed to the industry that well yet, but in my so far, I have not. I've noticed that a lot of the photographers or videographers or cinematographers that I've came across are men usually, and I have not been. Haven't met that many women that work in the film industry, but I've seen how in this country, if you have seen the show Reina, I think the writers are 3 women, So I see how the industry is improving. So I have hope that when I eventually join the industry well and I'm immersed, that I could, have the platform to be a female and not be discriminated.
Thanks for the question.
All right, so I think that was great. I'll give the panelists like 30 seconds each, maybe, to have a final remark. If you do, if not, we can finish.
I don't know. I don't know if I have a final remark. I think we kind of covered it. To emphasize something, I suppose, is that I think this is an exciting time. That unlike any previous revolution to media and visual storytelling and audio storytelling, that the scope of access is unprecedented. So take advantage of it. Get your voice out there. And if your success is 500 people, then that's awesome. If your success is millions of people, that's awesome too. But getting it out there is really the first step.
And I would say this: there were a lot of, there were a lot of opportunities to ask questions today, and there weren't that many. There weren't that many from you guys who are younger. And I just want to say this: that like Luna is up here because one of the reasons is, when I did a Zoom remote master class, she was really vocal, and like you got questions answered. And so don't be afraid to ask people. People love to help. People, the biggest director, like when I spoke to some of these people, I didn't know them. I knew the sound people, and then through the sound people, they were so lovely and so open. Some of them weren't. I won't mention certain names, but and so helpful. And I'm telling you, don't be afraid to ask for help. Reach out to your role models. Reach out to people who teach you, or people that you know here in Ethiopia, people that you know in Africa, people you know anywhere. Write an email. People love to help. I get emails from people I don't know, and some of them I just like answer and help in any way I can, because people want to help because they were in your position at one point. So please ask questions, ask for help. There are no stupid questions. There are no stupid questions. And really, everybody, I think that you'll find that people are there to help you, and really would, it's take advantage of that. Don't be afraid to reach out.
Thank you for this opportunity, first, for inviting me. And one thing I would say is we lack diversity in terms of what type of the genre of movies we make in this country. So I know there are a lot of filmmakers that have aspirations to make so many like weird or like artsy movies. So I go out there and try it, experiment with it. I'm sure it will come out good. So yeah, that would be my last remark.
All right, great. Give it up to our esteemed panelists. Well, thank you very much for listening to us. Appreciate it.